Welcome, everybody, to the Cone of Shame Veterinary Podcast. I am your host, DrAndyRoark. Guys, I got a good one today. I am here with Alex Douzet. He is the CEO of Pumpkin. Alex is a tech entrepreneur turned pet insurance CEO. He's just got such an interesting perspective. I talked to him first about some research that Pumpkin's put out with Zoetis on how they're hoping to change the impact that having pet insurance has on pet owner behaviors at the vet clinic. We talk a bit about Pumpkin, what is different about them and their perspective over there, and then we get into talking about one of Alex's articles that was on Forbes, and it was sort of talking about trends that are arising in the pet industry. We talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about telemedicine briefly, we talk about Gen Z pet owners and their interest in technology. And I got to tell you, talking to a tech entrepreneur about young pet owners and what the future looks like for the way that we as veterinarians interact with those young pet owners, it's fascinating. Anyway, it was a great conversation. I think you guys will enjoy this episode. This episode is made possible by Pumpkin. Guys, let's get into it.
This is your show. We're glad you're here. We want to help you in your veterinary career. Welcome to the Cone of Shame with Dr. Andy Roark.
Welcome to the podcast, Alex Douzet. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, it is a pleasure. For those who don't know you, you are the CEO of Pumpkin Pet Insurance. I first became aware of Pumpkin when Pumpkin published some research in the AVMA News. And so it's AVMA News article that came out. And I liked it, and I sort of grabbed right onto it. So it's been sort of anecdotally known, I've talked about it for a long time, that pets with pet insurance are more likely to come into the vet than pets that don't have pet insurance. And pets coming in with pet insurance are more likely to agree for the services that we are recommending. And the Pumpkin researchers that came out through the AVMA really back that up. And so what you guys sort of showed was that insured pets had 65% more hospital visits compared to uninsured pets, and that they had a 72% higher annual spend compared to uninsured pets. And both of those things have made sense, and they sort of carried out some of the ideas I had and sort of things that I'd seen in practice. But the thing that I really liked about it is when I've seen other research on this, there's always a bit of a sampling problem, right? When we look at insured pets, there's this idea, when you say, well, pets with pet insurance are more likely to come in more often, I say, well, yeah, but the pet owners who are the people who get pet insurance are also likely to be the owners who bring people in, or bring their pets in. And so I liked in this research, you compared pets before they had pet insurance to pets after. Yeah. So you guys found a 22% increase in the number of visits after getting pet insurance and a 43% increase in spending after getting pet insurance. And so that same pets pre and post, that was not something I hadn't seen before, but I really liked it. Were you surprised by these results as you saw them, or is this kind of what you expected?
I would say it's both, a little surprised, but also what we were expecting. Because we started the Pumpkin with that promise of like enabling the best care possible for vets, right? And maybe just to answer your question better, we kind of have to go back to the founding story of Pumpkin, because it's a little bit unique story, right? We were funded with the support of a company you might have heard of called Zoetis, right? Zoetis is this little company in animal health.
Yes. They're a boutique firm, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like boutique, very, very, very niche. Really wants to help their clients, the veterinarians, continue to do what they like to do, which is to save the life of pets, practice the best care possible. And in 2018, 2019, when we were starting to think about the idea of doing pet insurance, we realized the pet insurance industry in the US was relatively underpenetrated. Less than 2% of what we called medicalized pets. So those are not just every pets in the US, but the ones that actually go see a vet.
Okay.
Our estimation was about 100 million of the pets, right? There might be 165 million pets in the US, but like 100 million of them actually go see a vet at least like once every 18 to 24 months. Of those, only 2% had pet insurance. So we would look at that problem statement and say, what can we do to help that increase? Because we had seen more mature market, Sweden, the UK, with more than double-digit penetration of pets with pet insurance. So what can we do? The idea came back to say, let's create a pet insurance that is more vet-centric, that is really focusing on enabling the best care possible. So to do that, you have to have great coverage. You have to have like high annual limits, high reimbursement rates. But really what you want to do is really partner and align with veterinarians to explain the value. I think one thing that we'd seen that was lacking in this country, unlike some European countries, was that the vet as a community was holding back from making a recommendation of the value of pet insurance. So we figure like, okay, we really need to do something there. And that's where creating Pumpkin with the support of Zoetis made sense, because Zoetis in many cases is more than just pharmaceutical vendors to the vet industry. It's really, in many cases, we find them to be like a true partners to the veterinarian to practice better care. So with that, we figure, okay, we work together, we create this great product, we can advocate the case. But we need to convince the community that there was a real benefit of pet insurance. We knew that pets with insurance will come more often, they'll spend more, but we had to quantify this. And that's where the study you're referring to came into place to really just prove the science behind it and say, hey, pets who have a great insurance product like Pumpkin will come more often, they'll spend more with you, right?
Yeah. Do you think that the way that vets talk about pet insurance in the States is the primary differentiator between the US and the UK? So, I mean, I know that there's been much greater uptake in other countries. Just sort of looking at it from your perspective, is it simply the way that vets in the States talk about pet insurance, or are there other factors? I mean, it seems like I've always kind of imagined it's more of a cultural. I don't know if there's some cultural component. What is your perspective?
I think there's more than just one element. It's a few elements. I think in the US, you had a bit of a false start. Back in the days, I think the first real product that got some traction, probably had some challenge from the product structure, the way it was structured and the way the reimbursement worked. And I think in many cases, it created what we call like a little bit of a buyer's remorse. And that's something that we spend a lot of time studying and really looked at, it goes back to the DNA of the company and working with Zoetis and say, let's make sure we do something that will never get the community to be upset. Right? And so we really looked at, it's like, okay, while we're in pet insurance and maybe the pet owners or customers, the veterinarians are just as important to us as the pet owners, right? It's almost thinking about it like a two-sided marketplace, right? Both sides need to be really happy with the equation, otherwise it's a work, it doesn't take off. So we really focus on like creating a product that says there won't be any kind of buyer's remorse if the veterinarians makes a recommendation, advocate for the benefit of pet insurance, and say, look, this is a provider that we've had some good experience with. They deliver a good product, a good service. You should go check out Pumpkin, right? That's how the experience works. So that's, I think, important to also understand it. Like from our point of view, from our research, we looked at it. Not every pet insurance is created equal. And that's actually a big part of what we do, trying to work with the community and educating the community is like, don't just advocate of like any pet insurance, because like any insurance, home insurance, car insurance, there are high-end product and low-end product, right? And there's where we describe as like no magic math in insurance, meaning if something looks inexpensive, you get a quote for your dog or your cat, and you get a price that looks appealing but low. It's because the coverage is probably not that great, right? And that's where this potential of buyer's remorse exists, right? Yeah, so we were considering and developing Pumpkin with the goal in mind of like really supporting the community and enabling the best care possible. We had to look at all the scenarios, and obviously looking at the situation where someone hypothetically, selecting a plan that is more on the lower end in terms of coverage and reimbursement rate. There are still situations that could occur where this person could be faced by a recommendation from their veterinarians for a treatment, and then start to look at the math and say, well, a lot of it may not be reimbursed. And they may say no to the care in this example, or even worse, they may not even think about it consciously, go ahead and do it, and have a bad surprise. So post filing a claim, they look at what they got reimbursed, and there's probably disconnect with the expectation, right? And I think that's the thing that we were really conscious about, that potentially, ultimately, put us on the path to say the only way to solve for this is to create a more premium product with better coverage, higher, more generous annual limit, more generous reimbursement rate, because we will avoid those situations and it ultimately prevent the buyer's remorse, and it will protect the community from having to deal with this. And I think as a result, what we've seen over the past few years is that we get very strong reviews. I think when we Google for Pumpkin and you look at consumer reviews, you tend to see like very, very positive reviews. We get a lot of like positive comment and feedback from the clinics that we've been able to partner with and train them on the concept of pet insurance and what we do particularly at Pumpkin.
Yeah. You've got an article that came out earlier this year. It's called 5 Emerging Trends in Pet Healthcare for 2024 and Beyond. And I this is where I became aware of you. It's a good article. And so you've got sort of 5 trends where you're looking at the sort of the pet health space. And before I start, I'm going to ask you about a couple of them. But before I do,
Sure.
Can you sort of lay out for me, like looking in your crystal ball, in broad strokes, where do you sort of see the pet industry going in general? I mean, you talk in the article about a number of the forces that are sort of arising and converging. Lay that out for me, if you don't mind.
Yeah. And to be honest, for that, I may have to like take a step back of like how I got into this space, because my background 20 years ago was not in animal health. I'm a technology entrepreneur. My first company was a marketplace for jobs. You know, I was competing with the likes of the LinkedIn and of the world. And I got into animal health through my first entry was pet food. So in 2015, I came up with an idea for a next gen of pet food product. Ultimately, the company ended up like being called Ollie. It's a human grade fresh product. It's only for dogs, that is custom tailored to their weight and attributes, and it's a product that we ship to people's home, right? That's how I got to learn this entire industry. The reason why I got into this is for 2 reasons. One, because of my dog. My dog was the inspiration. She was having some issue, and I went to see a veterinarian who educated me about the challenge I was facing with my dog, and essentially what I learned there gave me the inspiration to create that company. The second thing was really, really convincing me, because initially, to be totally frank, as an entrepreneur, I was like, I have no business being in this industry. Like, what do I know about pet food and manufacturing food? And so I was kind of like, am I over my skis here? Like, this is maybe a little bit too much, or maybe I shouldn't go there. But to me, what convinced me to do this was the secular trend, the fact that the bond that exists between pet owners and pets is only getting stronger and stronger. You know, other people call that like the humanization of pets.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what that translates into is the fact that over the last 10, 15 years, what we've seen is not every pet owner, but a strong group of pet owners, and more of them are coming to market, are willing to invest in the care for their pet, because they want to extend the life and the relationship that they have with their pets, right? And that is ultimately what I would call the secular trend that makes a product initially, when I was in pet food, work and succeed, because again, I was creating a premium product. So you needed people to willing to pay for this to deliver a better experience on their pets. And then ultimately in 2019, when I started to look at the pet insurance, I realized those trends applied as well to veterinary care and therefore pet insurance, right? And I think, one thing I saw before 2014, the inflation rate, what's also called like the vet CPI, was really much 0% between like 2006 and 2014. And then between 2014 and 2021, when we got it through COVID, it was on average 6%. So 3x the standard inflation. Since COVID, we see the inflation being at like 8, 9, sometimes 10%. Right? So that creates a worry for a lot of people, because like, hey, will the average consumer be able to continue to afford medicine? And you have this force conflicting because you have more and more people adopting pets. Pets are taking a bigger part of our life. The good news is you have more and more people willing to invest in the care and are saying yes to new treatments or high-end treatments. But at the same token, the overall cost is rising. So this creating like conflicting force. And that's where I decided to say, it may be good for me to like write the story and try to do this like every year at the beginning of the year, like refresh on like what are my 5-year visions or what are the key trends that I see emerging. Because one of the challenges that I see right now, because I go myself to a lot of clinics, we have clinics that we partner all across the US, and I try to make sure I visit some of those clinics every year. I hear all the time the biggest pain point is staffing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a shortage of veterinarians. There's a shortage of technicians. And that is in direct conflict with the demand. The demand is rising. Like adoptions keeps going up. Pets are living longer. Demand for vet services are not declining. They're very resilient. Keeps increasing. And supply demand is starting to get an imbalance. And so I quoted in my story, I think the data was from IDEX, is that by 2030, there might be a 40% gap between the supply of people who can do the job and the demand for those services. So something's going to have to be there to increase the productivity.
Yeah, you point to traditional telemedicine, which I think was interesting as a possible way to increase capacity for vets, and I think that there's some possibility there, and you did a wonderful job of painting a picture of what the future might be like. It was very nuanced in not having a crystal ball, but also sort of the convergent forces that you see. What I'd like to you to sort of speak to here, if you don't mind. So you make a point, the people are closer to their pets than they have been in the past, and each generation is more tightly bound to their pets than they have been. And then, and I see increased willingness in investing into pets as we go. And then, you as a tech entrepreneur, I know that you're aware that, our younger generations are also more comfortable with technology, and they interface with the world through technology way more than previous generations do. And so I know this is a large sort of conversation when we talk about AI and things, but you make some references in the article to just things like digital self-check-in tools and patient intake kiosks and integrated CRM platforms spanning every visit touch point. And like my eyes kind of got wide. And I just like, this is really cool. Can you speak, I know in just sort of broad brushstrokes, what does that interface with technology look like in 2030, say, as we're going, if we continue to be shorthanded? I'm an optimist, Alex. I really think that we can solve so many problems with technology and with education. And I bet on vet medicine. I would like to see the future through your eyes, if that's okay. Show it to me.
Yeah, I mean, and look, as an entrepreneur, one of my motto is necessity is the mother of all invention, right? And so when I look at what I quoted in the articles, this shortage of supply with this rising demand, to me, that is the inevitable clash that's going to force everybody to rethink the experience, to say, we're not going to suddenly manufacture more veterinarians or more technicians. So we're going to have to find a way to increase productivity. And this is where technology does it. Every industry, if we look over the last 20, 30 years, where technology came in, it created, if it was designed the right way, it increased productivity in a tremendous way, right? If you think about like the standard accountant that years ago was doing accounting on the paper ledger, and now you're introducing software that are doing accounting and AI, these people are much more efficient and more productive, right? And the goal is not to necessarily use technology to replace the people that we see in the clinic, is to really give them like an exoskeleton to enhance them, to they become their co-pilot. So I think it's got to be on two fronts. One is on the experience. You have this new generation coming in. They were born and raised on technology, right? They were born with this thing in their hands. That's their native. I mean, it's unbelievable when you observe a young person and their approach to communication. Texting is the first natural thing. Calling is not. You take someone who's below the age of 25, And they're like, they look at you like you're a deer in the headlight. If you say, why don't you call this person? Why don't you call to make an appointment? They're like, well, what can I go online to make an appointment? What can I text to make an appointment? Or what can I use an app to make an appointment, right? So from that standpoint, over the next 10 years, clinics don't have to adjust to that way of doing, where it will have to be self-servicing tools, and you can gain productivity from that standpoint. So enabling appointments, booking through an online experience via texting, self-checking into a clinic through a kiosk. So you really have to like a front desk person every single time. Maybe not. I mean, I've seen some clinics today in the US experiment with that, where the check-in process is actually relatively seamless. Disappearing of like all the paperwork, like it's still like personally, I find it's a pain point of mine whenever I walk into a clinic and I see, oh my God, you're going to make me fill up like this whole like intake form on paper. Like, can it not be digitalized? Like that seems to be like such a low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
So things of that nature. And then we can go into the next phase, which is AI and how we can use AI to really enhance the productivity and really turn AIs into a co-pilot for both veterinarians and technicians.
Yeah, I think AI is going to take away a lot of the tedious work that we do in the practices. I think a lot of responding to emails and things is going to go away. I think the biggest opportunity for AI, I mean, I'm very biased as a veterinarian. I think medical record creation and management is going to be such a godsend as far as AI being able to make veterinarians faster, save them from spending time, just documenting. I think there's real opportunity there. You make the case in this article that you think corporatization in veterinary medicine might be beneficial in increasing efficiency. Can you sort of talk to me a little bit about that and kind of where your perspective is?
So the promise, I kind of go back to like first principles to build a thesis for this argument, is most clinics are independents or a relatively small business. They may have 3-4 veterinarians working there. They may have, 5,000, 6,000 pet owners active who come regularly to practice. In terms of revenue, we're looking at maybe 3 to 4 million, right? So I put this under the category of a small business. To solve the problem that we discussed before, this requires investment in technology. And unfortunately, there is a bit of a scale game there, right? So investing into a front-end experience, maybe a mobile-first app to interact with the pet owners, digital kiosk. Some of the things you may have to make a one-time investment, but if you can deploy that across many, many pet owners, you're going to get a better return on your investment. Right? And I think that's where the corporatization comes in, because if you are and continue to be just one man show as a operation, there's only so much you're going to be able to invest. Right? There's just going to be natural boundaries in terms of resources that you have access to make those investments. But if you're looking at the broader group can look at, we can make a one-time investment that is meaningful, but we can deploy this across 10, 20, 30 clinics and get more efficiencies. And then at that point, you standardize some of the more mundane processes, right? So that's where I looked at it. Now, it works great as an argument. The flip side of what I just said is the reality check.
Yeah.
Today, in the US, it's roughly 40% of clinics are under the umbrella of a corporate. So that could be a large group like an NVA, a VCA, or it could be, let's call it like a private equity owned group. And then 60% are still independent. Of the group of the 40%, I would say there is underwhelming evidence that it's actually working, right? I think what we've seen there is over the last 10 to 15 years, the message has been mostly join us at BU. But the challenge with that is ultimately you need to show an ability to create efficiencies, right? What's the point of like gathering 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 clinics if you can't show any type of like standardization and any improvement, right? And I think, you have to be able to look at both sides. Like you have to let the veterinarian decide how they want to practice medicine. I don't think anybody loves being told how to practice medicine and having a top-down approach. But on the flip side, on all the processes, standardizing, practice management software, check-in processes, record keeping, all those things can be streamlined at the back end. I think that's probably where we see most of the corporation struggling in a big way, in a way that was probably not expected, but they need to get there, right? Same, like in one of your podcasts, because I do listen to your podcast, right? I listened to the one you made on the wellness plan.
Yeah.
And I thought it was amazing. And I thought it was a spot on. Like every argument you made there was like spot on and the benefit of wellness plan. One of the reasons why we see such a low penetration of wellness plan in this country is mostly because all the companies will love to do it, completely struggle from a back-end system and operation to implement the benefit of a wellness plan.
Yeah. No, first of all, thank you for saying that. But I think I could talk to you all day. I really enjoy your insight. I love your articles. I link it up, and also the AVMA news piece down in the show notes so people can check that out. Alex, where can people find you online? Where can they learn more about Pumpkin Pet Insurance?
Yeah, I mean, super simple. You can find me on LinkedIn, just type my name and you'll be one of the first things that comes up. You Google my name, you'll see all the story I write for Forbes as a contributor. You can find me on social media like X and Thread. And then, you can just Google Pumpkin Pet Insurance to learn more about us.
That's amazing. Thank you for being here. Guys, thanks for tuning in and listening. Take care of yourselves, everybody. And that's it. That's what I got for you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Alex for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. Put links in the show notes for everything that we talked about and mentioned. Check them out. I'll see you guys later on. Take care of yourselves, everybody.